everyone, this is Cassie, and once again I am here as a guest with Pawsome Stamps for their Christmas card series. We're going to be using the Beary Christmas stamp set. It is absolutely adorable. I love it. I love all the little sentiments with it and the little extras. So let's jump into it. I'm going to start with a background. I have a piece of watercolor cardstock. I'm going to mist it with water a couple times, and then I'm going to pull in some various distress stains. We've got prize ribbon. We're also going to bring speckled egg and then villainous potion. I started off actually bringing in villainous potion for the distress oxide spray, but I wasn't quite ready for that yet. So we're going to do this in layers because that's kind of how these work best. And I'm going to heat set that in between each layer. Next, I will bring in some more of that prize ribbon just because I love it. And I'm going to splatter it a bit because I really love the splattery bits for the background. And then we're going to bring in our villainous potion after we've heat set before. And we're just going to do a lot of splatter for that one. I'm going to heat set that once again. And then I'm also going to bring in some speckled egg distress oxide spray. That is going to give it almost like a snowy feel because these sit on top, which is great. I'm going to bring in some liquid pixie dust and splatter that all over our background. And I'm going to do it pretty generously, and I'll show you what that does. But I'm kind of in love with this background. It's just splattery goodness and speckled, and I love it. I have some Express It cardstock that I've put into my Misty, and I'm going to ink up my images with some blackout ink. I'll stamp that down. And then while I have my bear out, I'm going to stamp on the inside of my card as well. I've got this kind of just folded in half. And I'm going to ink that up with some speckled egg distress oxide ink. Those stamp very well. And then it will tie the outside to the inside. Stamp that down, and then now we're just going to go ahead and color our images from earlier. I'll do my best to put all of the colors up on the screen, but for his antlers, we're going to use some E31, and we're also going to use that for his muzzle. And then we'll move on to coloring him. So I've got E23 as my main color, and I typically color lightest to darkest. I know that everybody's a little bit different, especially when it comes to alcohol marker coloring. Some people can do the dark to light, and I can do it on occasion with some, but my preference is always to go light to dark. So I've started with our E23 because we're going to have a little brown bear, and I'll put that color all the way down. And then we're going to come in with a mid-tone. Our mid-tone is E25, so it's not real drastically different. And I'll just add a little bit of shadowing and shading where I think that might look good. Top and bottom. Trying to think about where my shadows might be, but not thinking about it too much. And then I'll bring in a darker color. This is the E37. And then I'll go backwards and work in with that E25, just blending out our darker color. And then I'll come in with our E23 and do more blending. So that'll just really soften those edges. And then when we're done with that, we'll start working on our scarf. And I've decided to go with a rainbow color. So we'll start with our R's. And we've got R24 for our main red color. And I'm only going to do 2 color blends with all of these. So I'm just trying to count out how that rainbow is going to go. And then we'll bring in some R29. I'll flip this and we'll do the R for our present ribbon, our first present. And then, once again, the R29. Just adding a little bit of shading where I think that's going to look best. Our orange is some YR16 and some YR07. I'm not sure why I decided to go rainbow. It just sounded good to me today. Y15, and then we'll also color our present with the Y15. And then we'll bring in some Y19. And then I will bring in that Y15 again just to soften those edges just a little bit. You could absolutely keep those kind of harsh. In fact, sometimes I really like that. Then we've got YG25 for our green, and I'll use that same for our ribbon on this package. And then we have some YG17 for our darker shade. For our blues, we have B26. And then I go really dark with the my darker color. and I do a B39, which ends up being pretty dark, but that's okay. They're blendable. So you can see how dark that is. I like it. I like the contrast that we have going on here. And I'll put it on our scarf and then blend that out with the Y26, even on the dots. For our purple, we have V17, and I'm going to color the rest of our part of the packaging with that V17. Still kind of trying to go rainbow order. I just didn't bring in the orange, and I won't bring in the pink either, which is fine. You could probably stamp another present if you wanted. And then our darker is V09, and I'm only going to put that at the bottom of our present here and blend that out with the V17, because that's kind of harsh as well. For our pinks, we have our V21, and then we'll bring in some RV23, and we use that for his nose and the other part of the scarf. And then now we can fussy cut everything out. And I believe there are die cuts to match, but I don't have them. Once they're all fussy cut out, I'm going to trim off the bottom of our bear. I want him to be flush on the bottom of my panel. And then I do decide to trim this panel down a little bit. Originally it was 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, which is the full front of an A2 size card. But I'm going to trim about 1/4 inch off the long side and the short side. And then we'll start attaching down our pieces. You could use foam tape, you could do all sorts of fun things. I find that when I'm starting to make Christmas cards, I want them to be a little bit easier to mail, so I tend to not use a lot of foam tape. And then we'll put down the other present, and then we can glue down our bear right on top of that. So it looks like those presents are a little bit behind him. And I love all the color we have going on, especially with that fun background. It almost looks like a little bit of a blizzard. All right, now that that is ready, we're going to figure out what sentiment we want for the outside of our card. And we're going to stamp that onto some black cardstock. So I'll use a magic powder bag, ink up my image or my sentiment with a juicy embossing ink, which is just a clear sticky embossing ink. Stamp that down and then cover that with some white embossing powder. And then I'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted. Don't worry about the residue from the magic powder bag. That will wipe away after everything is good and dry. Just make sure that's cooled down first. Now I can trim down my sentiment in my guillotine trimmer. And I'll give it a little bit of an angle on that right hand side. And then we can adhere everything down to the front of our card. I'll use that same liquid glue that I've been using and put a nice white border around the full front of our card. And then I'll attach down my sentiment to the upper left hand side. And then I decide with that one long strip, I'm going to go ahead and put that on the inside of our card. Really does bring the outside to the inside, and I love that. And then I'm going to use some glossy accents on his nose. And then I use a black gel or glaze pen for his eyes to really make those pop. And then when I'm done with that, that is going to finish off our card for today. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I know I did. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And I do want to take this time to say big thank you to Pawsome Stamps for letting me guest design with them this month. I really enjoyed it. And I hope you all have a great day. Bye, everybody.